Hello, yo, and welcome again to another episode of the Call to Become podcast with Lydia Bediako-Kissi. And honestly, I just want to say thank you to you all for constantly listening, watching my podcast, every episode that I've shared so far. And I'm super grateful to each and everyone that has been following in this series. I'm just grateful to God for that, and thank you all once again. But yeah, so today I am just gonna continue from previous episodes. So from my last episode, those who haven't watched had to do with my testimony of how I actually found myself in the wilderness season, okay? And it was through that season that God had to take me through that process of becoming who He's created me to be. And so if you haven't watched or listened to my last episode, I just want to encourage you to go ahead and listen to it before you come to this. I'm just gonna dive deep and explain more today about what the wilderness season is all about and the purpose of the wilderness season. Okay, because many people hear the word wilderness and it's like, what is actually this wilderness season that we are talking about? But when you look in the scriptures, you realize that most translations use the word desert, wilderness. So when we talk about the wilderness, it's the process that prepares you and I for the promotion or fulfillment of the promises of God concerning our life, okay? And it's actually a place where God speaks and calls us into greater purpose. That is how God really calls each and everyone into greater purpose. And as part of it, we all have to surrender to this process, to this season that which God has called us into, because it's through that wilderness season we become who God has created us to be. And that is where God builds our character. He makes sure that we are strong enough to carry that assignment which He has given us to do. Okay, so it's I would say the wilderness season is that preparation, that process that you have to go through in order to get to that next level, the promises of God concerning your life. Okay, so sometimes you realize that God actually sets you apart. You tend to be isolated from so many things, so many people, even your family, close friends, relationships, even He just tried to set you apart to do His work in your life. And I always say that this wilderness season is more of like you and God affair, because He is doing that to build you for your next level. And for instance, if He's called you to be a minister or a president of a nation, and if you check your current state right now, do you think you are fully qualified to get to that level? And so sometimes God just has to do His work in your life to build you, to shape your character, to mold you to become that version for that next level. That promises of God to be fulfilled, for you to fulfill your God-given assignment, your calling, right? And so when you look into scriptures, you would notice that a lot of people had to go through that wilderness season to become who God has created them to be. Even Jesus had to go through the wilderness season. Scripture makes us understand in Matthew chapter 4 verse 1 that immediately afterward He was baptized. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And so Jesus had to experience the wilderness season Himself. And it was through that wilderness that He fasted for 40 days and nights, after which He was tempted by the devil. Alright? So Jesus Himself experienced it, and even Moses also did experience the wilderness season for himself, and it was even through that he encountered God. Scriptures makes us understand that he saw God face to face, and as a result of so many things, he was described as the meekest man, the most humble person on earth. He had so many dreams of becoming a great leader, where at a point his family will bow down and worship him, not like worship him, but sort of acknowledge him, his siblings also. And all this, he after having this dream, it took a long while for him to get to that promise, that dream that God revealed to him, God had to do a deep work in him in terms of his character. He had to go through a whole lot of character development, because how can you get such a dream and all of a sudden you just go and tell your brothers, hey, but I can just imagine how he would react. Hey, at a point you guys, you would be bowing down, to sort of worship me or acknowledge me. You could probably assume that there's a little bit of, and maybe he was bragging during that time. Maybe, that's what I'm assuming. I believe God had to do a work in his life to develop him in so many ways. And so you realize that if his brother had to put him in a pit, and from the pit he was sold as a slave to the Egyptians. From there, he served in Potiphar's house. Then right afterwards, he was thrown into the prison for being accused of sleeping with Potiphar's wife. And right afterwards, after that prison experience, that is how he became. Because he had to go through all the series of tests or process to become that which God has created him to be. And a lot of people did experience the wilderness. Ruth did experience the wilderness as well. After she lost her husband, it was a whole wilderness season for her as to what she wanted to do with her life. She didn't know what she was going to do with her life again, until she said that, hey, she's going to follow her mother-in-law and she would serve her God. So that was a whole process, a whole wilderness season of itself. Sarah also experienced that barrenness. Anna had her own share of wilderness. Esther also had to go through it. Esther had to go through that preparation through her uncle Mordecai, who had to groom her, mentor her, train her to become that perfect person for that royal role to be a king's wife. And it was actually more than just being a king's wife, because she was actually made for more, to save her people too. Now we want to understand what the purpose of the wilderness season is all about. So I would say it's that season that God matures us. It's that season that we grow, we develop ourselves. He builds our character. He stretches us. Because when you read Hebrews chapter 5 verse 8, it says that even though Jesus was God's son, he learned obedience from the things he suffered. So sometimes even when you go through that wilderness season, people go through the wilderness season and they even enjoy it more than their current state. But it is where God does his deep work in you, where he stretches you to come out of that comfort zone, to even go the extra mile in doing what he's called you to do. It is during that season where you got to fully surrender to God and let him do his work in your life. You got to fully depend on him and obey whatever thing he tells you to do, no matter how difficult. Even if you're struggling, you're suffering, he sees what you're going through, and he believes that even despite the fact that you're going through it, it is something that you can handle. If he sees that you cannot handle it, he wouldn't let you go through it, because he knows the end from the beginning. And so if he has taken you through this wilderness process, you should know that he believes you can handle whatever season you find yourself in. So even if you're being stretched, just go through that process. So that is one purpose of it. It is that season where we all grow and we mature, and he develops us, he builds our character. When we talk about character, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got a bad character at this stage. It's more of like he building you for where you're going in maturity, that you grow even in the things of God, even in specific field. Like he is just grooming you and shaping you and pruning you to become that perfect person for where you're going. Okay, even for the sake of the assignment, your purpose, your calling, he is shaping you and he's stretching you for that purpose. And another thing is, it is that season of humility. And honestly, you can't go through the wilderness season and you will not humble yourself, because God will deal with you in a sense that pride in you must. Honestly, yes. So He will make sure He kills whatever pride that is in you. And it's that season that you just humble yourself naturally. You just have to humble yourself and let God do His work in your life. And in Deuteronomy 8 verse 2 says that, remember how the Lord your God led you through the wilderness for these 40 years, humbling you and testing you to prove your character and to find out whether or not you would obey His commands. So when He takes you through this wilderness, it's more of you humbling yourself for God to do His work in you. So if you notice from the Israelites, they had to depend on God all the time. I believe that the first years or days or weeks of they being with God, it was a humbling time because they just had to depend on God. It is very humbling, in this season, because that is how God draws you to Himself, because He just wants to do His work in your life. You have to surrender fully to the process, and in surrendering, that is how come you can humble yourself in it. Because if you do not surrender yourself fully to this process, how would you become that perfect person for that next level, for the promises of God to be fulfilled in your life, for you to get into your God-given assignment? And so He humbles you and He tests you. So the next purpose of the wilderness season is that season where you would be tested, and it's that season where you discover yourself even more, that you have been made for more. God has called you to do far more than you actually think, and so you will be tested, and it's a place of self-discovery. When I talk of being tested, God will test your faithfulness in a sense that when no one is watching you, would you still do what He has called you to do? There's also going to be that test of waiting. Are you still going to trust God's timing even when you don't see a way? Even when it doesn't make sense, are you still going to trust God's timing? You will be tested in so many ways. Would you obey God even when it costs you? Sometimes it will cost you so much that just to realize if you have really died to self and you're ready to do whatever thing God tells you to do. Are you just ready to obey God even when it will cost you so much? It will cost you your life. It will cost you even your finances. It will cost you certain relationship. Are you still ready to die to self and obey God in that season? And it's also that season of purification. That is where God actually refines you and He breaks you, He molds you, He shapes you and cleans you to become that perfect person. Yes, because when you come out of the wilderness season, you will notice that you are a different person altogether. And that is how I felt. And if you should compare my life now to my life in the last 3 or 4 years, I would say I'm a whole new person. Yeah, because He really does His work in your life. And another thing is that season of strength. The wilderness season is where God strengthens you. Even in your weakness, He still what gives you strength. Luke 1 verse 80 says that, so the child grew and became strong in spirit and was in the desert till the day of His manifestation. He grew and became strong in spirit. Honestly, you can tell the difference when you come out. That supernatural strength to do things with ease. Like you don't struggle. Although like you go through that experience, but it is to strengthen you to come out and you realize that you've matured in certain things. You've grown past certain things. Now, there are things that do not bother you anymore because of that experience in the wilderness. The last point I also want to add is that there is wilderness season. It's also that season of revelation, because it's that season where God reveals Himself to you and He reveals His plans for your life, and that is where you get to know Him more. You grow in the things of God, and He leads you and guides you in all things in order to get to that promise. And this can only be achieved if you stay focused to what God is doing in your life in that season. So God definitely do reveal himself to you in so many ways, and that is what the wilderness season is all about. And so now I just want to talk about certain things that can actually prolong the wilderness season. In as much as there's a good purpose for the wilderness season, there are also certain things that you do that can prolong that season. If you're supposed to take 40 days to go through that season, you can actually prolong it for 2 to 3 years or even 5 years based on your action, based on how you react in the wilderness season. Are you ready to obey and conform to what God has told you to do during that season? And so I just want to mention a few things. Number one is actually complaining. We complain a lot, honestly, in that season. I can recall, I believe I also did complain in a sense that I was just asking myself questions that what have I actually done? What sin have I committed that I had to go through this season? Yeah, because you would complain and ask so many questions. Some of you may even ask yourself that, God, where are you in this season which I find myself in? Because you realize that it's so dry, it's like nothing is going on. You feel so lonely, like it's like you don't exist in this world. Yeah, so we complain a lot about the season, and that is how sometimes we prolong this season, because of the way we complain and talk about what we are going through and all that. Because sometimes the thing is, in as much as you're in that season, God wants to do his work in your life, but when you keep complaining, it's like you just want to have your way and you don't want to fully surrender to the process. That is how come you prolong it, and you prolong it by the things we say. We do speak a lot. Sometimes you harden your heart in this process. You don't want to fully surrender to it. It's like you still want to have your way in that wilderness season. And as a result of that, that is why we complain a lot. And another thing is disobedience. Like I mentioned, we just want to have our own way of doing our own things. Disobeying God when he has told you to do something and you're not doing. How can you get out of that season? And so we just need to obey God in that season. It's your obedience that will take you out of the wilderness season. Just obeying God brought me out of this season. At a point, he made me write a book. He says, put your testimony in a book. I'm like, me, write a book. The only thing I studied in school was literature. I just had to obey God and then write a book, put my testimony in a book, which I actually did. And that brought me out of the wilderness season, and it was that act of obedience brought me out of it. And so I just want to encourage anyone that it may be just the little things that you're ignoring, but that alone can make a way for you to get you your next level. It's just a matter of obeying. Even if it doesn't make sense, just do it. And another thing that can prolong the wilderness season is when you idolize and push your desires above God's will concerning your life. Because at that point, that's why I say it's just you and God affair. You just have to let go of everything for you to become. And so no matter your desires, what you want to achieve in life, because honestly for me, in that year, I actually felt like I did not achieve anything pertaining my goals, what I wanted to do. I did not. So at a point I was complaining that, why do I have to go through all these things? But honestly, God really did a work in my life. And I'm sure God is also doing a work in your life if you do not see a way, but he is doing a work in you. And I realized that it was really worth it going through that wilderness season. And another thing that can prolong the season is sexual immorality, in a sense that committing sexual sins. Come on, now is not the time for those things, Watching pornography because God has isolated you, God has set you apart. And instead of you to stay focused, you're being distracted by watching all these things, by fornicating, by masturbating, now is not the time for those things. And you shouldn't even think of doing such a thing. That alone can prolong your season, because in a way, God definitely have to do a deep work in you. Have to purify you, cleanse you from all these unnecessary sins. So that alone can actually do prolong your season, and you just have to abstain from it, because that won't take you anywhere. And so these things can actually prolong your wilderness season, and I believe you have been blessed by it, because as believers, in one way or the other, you will find yourself in the wilderness season. Because even if Jesus had to go through that season to get to his next level, then you would also have to go through it. Because just as scripture says that he was in the wilderness for 40 days and nights without food. He fasted in there to prepare him for that ministry he had ahead of him. As a child of God, you just want to embrace yourself for the wilderness season. You want to embrace yourself for that process that you have to go through in becoming. It may be difficult, but it's okay to go through it. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be isolated, to feel lonely sometimes. But you should know that God is definitely doing a work in your life. And at the end, I would say it shall be glorious, because every vision speaks at the end. And so just stay focused, be disciplined, and do not be distracted, and just be obedient in that season. And whatever thing he tells you to do, please do it. For that is how you can easily come out of that season knowing that God has done his work in your life. And so God bless you. Thank you so much for your time today. And please feel free to share with your friends, anyone going through that season. And yeah, may they be blessed.